Hello, everyone. Tonight we have homework 21 through 28 in your study guide. Yes. So make sure you get that done. Also, once again, hint, hint, hint. You may want to look. I got the hiccups. I'm sorry. You may want to start looking at the essay and start putting together some ideas for that. Okay, so the last time we left off at letter I, saying that President Coolidge only serves one term. The election of 1828 will feature a weak Democrat and a great economy. So, what does that mean for the Republicans? Pretty much a good win. Herbert Hoover was the Secretary of Commerce during the First World War. His reputation during the war keeps on going. People think he's awesome when he gets into the White House. Since he's independently wealthy, he won't take a dime, especially during the time of during the Depression. He will refuse to take any pay. He's an all good around good guy. The only problem is that he is going to struggle with this depression coming up. His opponent, letter B, is the governor of New York. His name is Alfred E. Smith, and he has some handicaps. The first handicap is he's Catholic. Now, today that's not a big deal, but back in the day, people are very afraid that him being Catholic, that could mean that maybe the Pope himself would be running our country rather than Mr. Smith. A second handicap that he had was he was a wet. Remember, wets are people who believe that we should be allowed to drink. All right? So we still have prohibition, and people that are against prohibition don't like the idea that this guy is supporting the idea that we should be able to drink. The last he has ties to Tammany Hall. Once again, if you guys can remember, Tammany Hall was where the Democrat party machine was located. It was the building that they were located in. And so his ties to the party machine made it very difficult. Even though people didn't want to be progressive any longer, they still didn't like the idea of party machines. Some of the southern states break with what has been called the Solid South. And once again, the Solid South is the idea that the South only votes for Democrats. So since the end of Reconstruction, there's been this idea of Solid South. That means that, if you're a southern state, the only party you vote for is the Democrats. So some of the states start thinking to themselves, well, this Hoover guy is a great guy. He's not Catholic, which is a big deal in the South, where you have large populations of Protestants. Many of them being Protestants were against prohibition, and a lot of Southerners were definitely against party machines. So some of the southern states say adios to the Democratic Party. Fears of communism break out around every corner, and so people are starting to really be afraid that there's a communist takeover that's happening in our country. This first Red Scare begins in 1919 and continues for two years. Most strikes during this time are labeled as communist-led. Most of the strikes during this time are labeled as communist-led. People, see communists in all walks of life. People see their postman. They see their milkman. Oh yes, their milkman. He could be a commie. And he's hiding around the corner listening to conversations. Oh no. And some people were even saying, oh my gosh, do you know that the police officers are becoming communist? Oh my gosh, did you hear about that strike in Boston? I heard it was communist. So yeah, people are a little bit tense right now. So people see communists in all walks of life. Postmen, milkman, and police officers. This is called, once again, the Red Scare. This is called the Red Scare. The idea that a communist is found everywhere within our country. Letter C. Communist and socialist make up a small portion. Socialist. Communists and socialists make up a small portion of our population. Yet they'll be blamed for all strikes, and for unions. So for all strikes and unions, and even the women's movement, which is considered by many men to be a disturbance of our society, and they blame the communists for it. Letter D. Letter bombs are blamed on communists. We call them letter bombs, but most of these were packages. And what happens is there are some for real radical anarchists that start deciding that some of these rich people like Rockefeller and others should pay for being wealthy. And so what they start doing is they start putting in boxes bombs. And about, let's see, do I have it here? Yes. 36 bombs are discovered, and some even get to people like Rockefeller. Now, fortunately for Mr. Rockefeller, in his case, one of his butlers had opened up the door, found the package on the doorstep, and picked it up and ended up blowing off his hand. So, you know, Mr. Rockefeller was saved, but obviously his butler was not. One reaches our Attorney General, and it blows up before he can actually open the package. Newspapers demand some action be taken. Our Attorney General, Mr. Palmer, responds by creating an organization to find radicals. Our Attorney General Palmer responds by creating an organization to find radicals. And I think you guys are familiar with this. It is labeled the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Its first leader, J. Edgar Hoover, is going to be selected to head this agency. Now remember, this is the 1920s. He stays the head of the FBI until the mid-1960s. So he's there for a long time. Now, the real scary thing that people talked about, especially in the 60s, is that it was noted that J. Edgar Hoover probably, or may have had, we're not sure which, had files on everybody. He had a file for every single American, and he was monitoring many of them without them even knowing it. So yeah, kind of getting scary with this FBI. As the FBI finds information on radicals, Palmer, Attorney General Palmer, will then launch raids to seize suspects and information, and these are called Palmer raids. 33 cities will have mostly poor immigrants arrested, and few had evidence against them. The most famous case of the Red Scare is the trial of two gentlemen, Sacco and Vicente. on your homework, a lot of you guys missed out on two things about them. Both of these guys were Italian anarchists. Both of them were Italian anarchists that had recently immigrated here. So, two things that made people suspicious of these guys. First, they were anarchists, which, unfortunately at this point was not considered illegal, although it did make it very hard for you to come into the country as an immigrant. But even more hard for a lot of people were that they were Italian immigrants. People did not like Italian immigrants at this time. Both were going to be charged with a payroll robbery in which 2 guards are killed. They were convicted on evidence from ballistic information. This is the first ever evidence where you get the evidence from a bullet. Now, there's questions about if the bullets that they found at the crime scene actually were the bullets that were in their gun that they had. We're not sure, and because we're not sure, this is why people were upset about this trial. The question was, how was the evidence collected? How was the evidence collected? Many say they are executed because they're just simply immigrant and anarchist. Many say they're executed for just being an immigrant and an anarchist. Industry continues to grow and improves. There are some new power sources. We've talked about those in previous chapters. Electrical power starts out slowly, but will eventually grow as it becomes a standard in buildings. So by the mid-1920s, almost everyone is expecting that they will have electrical outlets. With the availability of power, electrically powered devices will become an expectation. So we will start expecting now that we have power in all of our houses. An expectation. Okay, so that gets us pretty far today. Once again, we definitely have enough for questions 21 through 28. Make sure you guys are on top of that. Remember, we are turning in the second half of the study guide on Friday. I am working on many of your study guides right now. Hopefully we can get them all graded up and to you guys no later than the end of the night tonight. That's at least my goal. So you guys have fun at the parade. Hope to see a lot of you guys at the parade. And make sure you guys don't forget about the work. All right, guys. You guys have a good day. See ya. Bye.